And we're here to talk about a very important topic, of course, and that's it's near and dear to my heart, and it's the future of the ABLE program. These ABLE accounts have allowed countless individuals with disabilities to save for their futures and improve their lives, and we'll hear some of that today as well. It's critical that we protect the ability for individuals with disabilities to save for their future, and ABLE's a big part of that. Throughout my career, I've fought to implement and expand ABLE accounts. It's kind of an interesting journey. When I was a state senator in Missouri, we were one of the first states to enact it. And then I became state treasurer and we implemented it. And my son Stephen actually was the first account in Missouri. And then now as a U.S. senator, get to continue to work on this with a lot of people I've gotten to know along the way. So we're working across the aisle to permanently enshrine these critical provisions through the Enable Act. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you today about your thoughts and the impacts that ABLE has had and how we protect and expand ABLE so we can better serve individuals with disabilities, which is really what this is all about. So with that, I want to turn to Natalie and hear from you first on what ABLE's meant for you.
Hello, is Senator. My name is Nadia Beck. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Luther, Virginia. I live with my friends and work in a good church and to school. I learned I took even I could took off to be here. I have a critical older sister, Mary Rose, and my grandma Lucy, who's my new guardian. I'm proud my daughter is coming to see back. I am able to advocate. It's for as I can remember. My dad he took me to the hill. Time advocate with EDSS. In 7-11, it was already so much fun. I am excited here today and I'm for my future. Schmitt and have been friends almost 20 years. It worked very hard. It makes it impossible to me. It means the people with disabilities. My voice matters. It matters to this discussion. I opened my email account, which in December 2016, with my mom and my sister. Sarah story to celebrate is a lot has changed since when I'm older. I live my own. We suppose I work my own. And my missing grandmother and sister. They care both when my parents are gone. I lose my ability in account those things into experiences. I lived around town, around my activities like horseback riding. I believe I had tonight without my Emory account. I would have flexibility, freedom, and independence. I'm excited to be here today. Even for my governor last night, I had to be here because Senator Sarah needs my help.
Thank you for being here. And so now I'll turn it over. Alabama's very well represented here today. I'll just lead off with that. Right. So I'm not going to say that Mizzou's playing down there in a couple of weeks. But it's great to have my good friend and the birthday boy, Coach Tommy Tuberville, here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I'm a year smarter, not a year older. Now, I want to begin with thanking Senator Schmitt for his leadership in supporting the ABLE Savings Program. As Missouri's state treasurer, attorney general, you've been in this business a long time, and now a U.S. senator, who is also a very dear friend, has been a champion for this program. It allows, and we all know, Americans with disabilities and their family to save and build wealth. Great idea. Americans with disabilities have no greater advocate than my friend Eric Schmitt, and I'm proud to serve with him and support his efforts. I'm honored to be here today with fellow Alabamian Young Boozer. Yes, that's his name. Young is in his 4th term as Alabama's state treasurer. Before he got into public service, he had an impressive career in banking and insurance that took him from the Wharton School of Business to Wall Street. We're lucky to have Young in an elected office in Alabama, and he's been a tireless advocate for the ABLE program in our state for nearly a decade. That's awesome. He helped educate me and my team about the program when I got to the Senate. So, Treasurer Boozer, there are folks watching this webcast wondering how their state can be more effective at expanding access to the ABLE program. You've led that effort in Alabama and made our state a national leader in implementing ABLE. Walk us through how you got involved with the program, how you got it up and running in Alabama, and what were the highs and lows, and what more needs to be done at the federal level here in D.C. to support Americans with disabilities and their families who are trying to save and build wealth. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Appreciate it. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Great day. I'm Young Boozer, and as the senator said, yes, that's my real name. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be with Senator Schmitt, who is a past treasurer. We served at the same time. And of course, I'm especially proud to have Senator Tuberville and Senator Britt be proponents and sponsors of this bill and this action. He's been a huge supporter all these years. Let me walk you through how it started for us. As the treasurer of the state of Alabama, I am the chairman of the board that oversees the college savings program as well as the ABLE program because they are they're 529 sections. In 2014, the law was passed, and after that was passed, NAST organized a meeting in Chicago in 2016 to get the people together who were going to be involved with the production of this. The meeting gathered all parties in Chicago, and we had people from everywhere. So we had the Beck folks who had pushed the 2014 bill and law, treasurers, program directors, 529 administrators, regulators, and the NAST staff. We had a great meeting in Chicago. It was an outstanding start. We hashed out a lot of things according to structure, and everybody was quite satisfied with the way it went. When I left that meeting, I thought, well, this is just going to be another product produced by the 529 program. I was wrong. What did Alabama do? The state law was passed in 2016. The first account was opened in 2017. It was the best possible beginning we could have ever had. Stephanie Miner was our first account holder. Stephanie Miner was a young lady from North Alabama, and she had MS. She had a service dog, a beautiful blonde lab, whose name was, and a good portion of you will get this, the dog's name was Astro. Okay?
We remember that.
The Jetsons. Okay. Happy birthday. Well, what she found out was that Astro was aging out and she needed to get a new dog. And so she went out and priced service dogs and found out that they range from $10,000 to $15,000. Well, she could only save $2,000. It didn't make any sense. She was the first person to step up and say, I want one of those accounts because that's what I want to do with it. She was inspirational. The impact on her was significant, but it was a tremendous impact on all of us who are running the program. It made our effort different. I said earlier that it was just another product. It wasn't. It became a mission for us to do the right thing. We learned more about the community. It's large, diverse, cautious, careful, and sensitive. We work with individuals and groups. We learned grassroots efforts were essential. We learned that the disability organizations are key to promoting this and expanding the products. I also learned that leadership is incredibly important. And our leadership is Anita Kelly. She is energetic. empathetic, and dedicated to go anywhere, call anyone, speak everywhere, and meet at any time. We are on an uptick. What were some of our highs and lows in putting all this together? The first high was the first account with Ms. Miner. Made a difference for her, and it made a difference for us and showed us the potential that this would have. A low was the first administrator that we had for the program. It was not a good match, and we got off to a slow start. The subsequent high was finding the right administrator, Veswell, to get us rolling, and our accounts have increased dramatically. The assets under management have increased substantially, and so we are blowing and going right now. What more needs to be done at the federal level? Here are a couple of ideas. First, I want to thank you for all the enhancements that have already been made. There is a long list of them, and especially the things that have been done for the veterans. So I have three that I would mention that need to be worked on. The first is to amend the Medicaid recapture provisions in the ABLE Act. It's amazing how many people we've run into that wanted to have an account, well, were scared off by the fact that that was a possibility. They are cautious already. We don't need to make them super cautious. That would be a great enhancement. We'd also like to bolster the language related to the rights of a designated survivor on an ABLE account. That would be a great thing to do. Third thing, permit lump sum distributions from certain sources such as 529 rollovers, an insurance benefit payment, and or a legal judgment. Sometimes those can be much greater than $100,000 and shouldn't be subject to. It should be able to be put into this product, and also would not be subject to the federal gift tax exclusion. We all need to maintain our vigilance over the ABLE account to ensure a better life experience continues for the current participants and the participants in the future. This program and our efforts have been a significant value to the state of Alabama, to this country, and to the people that we serve. Also, I want to shout out to Treasurer Garrity of Pennsylvania. She has done a wonderful job as the chairman of Aspen. She's all in, and she's working all out. So it's great. And finally, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts and our experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Boozer. Thank you very much. We appreciate your leadership on this. I want to turn now to Julie Hawker, who was the U.S. Commissioner on Disability under President Trump. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Senators, for convening us today. I am going to talk a bit about what I learned as the former U.S. Commissioner on Disabilities under the last administration, but I also want to go back a little bit further before I became Commissioner, because I was a child with dreams, and then I was a young adult with goals. And like my peers with and without disabilities, like my siblings who are just a year or two older than I am, my childhood was around this idea that I would grow up and I would work and I would be a part of my community, and that I would have whatever I needed to make those dreams and those goals a reality for myself. And so I went after them, expecting that I would be able to plan and save and invest just like everyone else, so that I could go on great vacations, buy a house, drive a car, and retire. All those things that we grow up imagining and dreaming about. But unlike my peers, and unlike my brother and sister, who are only a year or two older than I am, I just have to be really clear about having very different circumstances that need to be a part of my planning. And so as a person with a significant disability myself, and a complex rare disease, I need to think about the flexibility that I need in my assets today, in my savings plan. And I also need to think about my older age and my retirement differently too. So as much as I had the great fortune of going through school and going through undergrad and business school, the realities of my financial planning really came to have me ask some questions about how I was saving. Now, I had the great fortune right out of business school. I worked in asset management for a number of years. I was living outside of Philadelphia, working for a large asset management firm, and really began to understand what savings could do for me and how I could plan for my future. But it wasn't until I moved back to Washington and I moved back to take on the role of U.S. Commissioner that I even knew what an ABLE account was, and I immediately understood that I needed one. And the reason is, as an individual with a disability, when it comes to retirement and being able to draw down from my 401k, I can't do that right away if I need to retire early without penalty. So when we think about, on the individual level, how folks may be using their they're maybe using their ABLE account, one thing that we need to think about is we want more Americans with disabilities going to work. We want them to enjoy the great privilege and the great recognition and the great reward of going to work every day. I like going to work every day. I like being on teams and leading teams. But we also need to be really clear that if I, for example, wanted to retire early or needed to retire early or had unexpected medical care that I needed, it'd be really hard for me to withdraw from my 401k. My ABLE account is that safety net. It gives me flexibility today if I was to have a significant experience like a medical condition, I need to buy a new car or make a significant investment, but it also is going to be what bridges me from working full-time to my retirement. But I will say this, it's not just about who I am as a person. I was U.S. Commissioner for a number of years, and I got to travel our country and meet thousands of people with disabilities and the leaders who lead the organizations at the state and local levels. And I heard a couple of themes in that job, and I still hear them today. I advise them now from the private sector, and it is that people have low expectations that are buried into our society for many people with disabilities. And so it's hard to get to the conversation about employment and the ability to save and invest and even talk about these conversations. But I can tell you this, there are many people with disabilities who want to see the path where working is the choice that they can make with confidence. Because I've met too many people in my travels who wanted to work, but asset limits and the need for supports was their biggest limitation of why they weren't working. And so as we look forward and we look, I was just out in another state recently, and they're trying to bring more people with disabilities into the labor force in that state. And their biggest battle is asset limits and losing the supports that they need. The ABLE account is the beginning of how we can help people set aside the finances today and allow them to invest for tomorrow in a way that begins to peel back the barriers to employment. I like to think of it this way. If we want people to be a part of their local economy in the way that they work, the ABLE account allows them to be a part of the global economy by welcoming them to invest in that market. And so I just want to thank you all for being here. It is a great privilege for me to continue this conversation with you all. I am actually going to turn it over to Betty Ann, if that's okay. Betty Ann is our friend from Maryland. I spent a number of years of my life living in Maryland before moving to Virginia, and I know that we're gonna pull on this idea that there are 8 million Americans with disabilities who are eligible for ABLE accounts, just like I am. And we were just talking about my Virginia ABLE experience, and we have about 180,000 ABLE accounts. But what we want to ask you, Betty Ann, is as you look forward, what are the opportunities outside of legislation? I know we're on the Hill today, so we love to talk about, we love legislation, but even outside of that, there's amazing activity every day throughout our country that is helping to build the confidence and build the assets under management within these accounts.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Senator Schmitt, for having me. My name is Betty Ann Mobley. I'm the current director of the Maryland ABLE program, and I serve as vice chair of our National ABLE Savings Plans Network. So it's really exciting to be here to share. Legislatively, there are always things that we have, but there's so much more. As Julie said, it took her to have an office to say, oh, there's something called an ABLE account. And one of the challenges we have across the country in ABLE programs is really getting that word out there. It's really tough for us to do that. And so as we as a network have been developing a new network, we've begun to recognize that it's through partnerships, really strong partnerships with private and public sector that really help us to continue the word of ABLE. There are things that we have with many of our partners that interface with the ABLE programs. And as in any program, there are challenges we face in operationalizing our regulations from the IRS, our relationship with the Social Security Administration, and how they interface with ABLE accounts. There are many, many national organizations that impact our program. And it's really important to have our partnership with our legislators in helping us to get the opportunity to convene with those people, to sit at the table and to be able to talk about some of the things our account members, our account holders are struggling with. And as program administrators, we're struggling to define and understand so that we can consistently send a message across the country. You talked about the fact that many account holders, I think this was Treasurer Boozer, who said it's a trust issue. Many people with disabilities have experienced disappointments in their life because they've put their trust in programs that have let them down. And so as we go out there to reach out to people, we have to start by building that trust. One of the worst things we can do is send a message that then is different from one state to the next, from one program to the next. And we can only come to that agreement across programs when we have the opportunity to sit with our partners, for people like the IRS and the Social Security Administration, and talk about the challenges we have. So we could really use that support, which isn't legislation, but helping us to build partnerships. And one of the other huge areas that help us to build partnerships and to get this information out is something we've embarked on in the last couple of years. And that's looking at private and public sector employers. We tout ourselves as the free benefit you can offer. It doesn't cost you anything to share information about ABLE accounts. Just as an example, we celebrated our first annual ABLE Savings Day in August, and I was finally able to connect with our state Division of Budget Management, which is our state human resources. We put on a webinar. We only had 3 days to advertise it. We had 678 people register to learn about ABLE. That's just Maryland state employees. So multiply that by all the states, all the businesses, because we really don't know in a business who may have been someone who has shared their disability, someone who may not have self-disclosed their disability, or may have a family member or someone they know who could benefit from an ABLE account. So helping us to spread the word by helping us as we work with public and private sector employers and work with our national partners. I just wanted to also say that as you're looking at this ABLE Act, which is so important, there are 2 provisions of ABLE, which we all know have the potential of sunsetting at the end of next year. That's really scary to us. And I'd like to share with you, I brought with me someone who is an actual ABLE account holder in Maryland. And Lily, can you tell them why the ABLE Act is really important to you?
It is important to me because for me to have a job in the future, I would like to be able to put money in my Maryland ABLE account.
Thanks, Lily. So thank you to all of us for giving us the opportunity, all of you for giving us the opportunity to be here and share this information on behalf of the Aspen Network and on behalf of all ABLE programs across the country.
Thank you. And great job, Lily, by the way. Live streaming and all, right? Great job. You delivered. Great job. All right, and so now from my very good friend, the third face on the Alabama Mount Rushmore that we have here today, the senator from Alabama, Katie Britt.
Thank you so much. I am really grateful to Senator Schmitt, not just for his friendship. He and Jamie, Wesley, and I have just loved the opportunity to get to know both of them and their families and talk about good people. but for his leadership on so many important issues that we face here on the Hill, and in particularly on this one, and inviting me here today and leading on this critical legislation. As he has noted earlier, the Enable Act would empower families and enhance economic opportunities for Americans with disabilities. I am proud to be a co-sponsor and to walk alongside him as we move this critical piece of legislation forward. I'm also proud of the work that Alabama has done, which I guess you have heard a little bit about already before me getting here today, in its own ABLE Savings Program plan, and particularly the leadership of our treasurer. And with a name like that, Young Boozer, right? You know why he just keeps getting reelected. He has done an outstanding job for the state of Alabama, sincerely, and is willing to do hard things, and also wants to make sure that he takes a look at people's needs and figures out how he can use his time and service to actually address those. So thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for being here. I know that y'all were pleased to hear him talk about the success of our program and the opportunity it's provided to over 1,000 individuals in our great state. And I look forward to continuing to work with him, and in particular to partner on this, as well as to every person in this room. So as has already been said, every child deserves a pathway to reach their full potential. And this legislation would enable just that. Through providing opportunities to invest and save towards their futures, this truly will change lives. And if you look around this room, as politics are pretty stark here in Washington, D.C., it's nice to see people from different states, different walks of life, and different political parties sitting here united for a common cause. And on that, we are so appreciative to have Sarah Hart-Ware here today, who I understand has spent a career advocating for individuals with disabilities. This includes her current position as ABLE today and the Kansas Council of Developmental Disabilities, as well as previous efforts to advocate for ABLE legislation at both the federal and the state levels. Through her work with the National Down Syndrome Society and the Engage organization, and even raising her hand to run for Congress and being willing to serve. Sarah, thank you for being here today and for what you do to ensure that people with disabilities and their families have a seat at the table when important decisions are made, and especially when it comes to economic policies. And with that, I want to turn to you, and perhaps you can speak on how the current ABLE legislation can help lead to even more policy reforms that help people with disabilities, as well as their families and caregivers, achieve their own financial freedoms.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Senator Britt. It's been fun to watch you up close and from afar with our work at Engage, and of course, Senator Schmitt, longtime friend. Thank you so much for having me and having all of us be here for this important conversation. I'm going to kind of focus those remarks and that great question on the past, present, and future of ABLE. It's, I don't think, any irony or surprise to anybody that we're gathered around this nice table. The idea for ABLE, for what ultimately brings us here today, really came out of a kitchen table conversation out of the great state of Virginia. Natalie's dad and 5 other incredible advocates in 2006, 2007 really came up with this idea. So we're here talking about bipartisan policy reform, economic security for people with disabilities, but this really came from 5 parents. What, Natalie, a long time ago? A long time ago.
It's 20 years ago.
Yeah, almost 20 years ago. She's going to remind me that every single day. And really, I think that's why we're here. That's why we advocate. That's why we run for office. That's why we serve. That's why we run great programs, is because we want to lead on those private sector solutions that address those public sector challenges that individuals with disabilities face, caregivers face, and family members. So I wanted to point that out because I think that's the reason we're here today. Let's talk about the present. A couple of weeks ago, and all of our colleagues who are running ABLE programs, leading national organizations, and running state treasury offices know that we just hit the largest milestone in the history of ABLE. $2 billion. $2 billion, billion with a B. if Natalie's dad, Steve, were here today and sitting around this table, which I wish he was, to celebrate $2 billion in the disability economy is pretty substantial. To a community just 8 years ago couldn't save more than $2,000 at any given time in their own bank account. And now we have ABLE account holders who are purchasing their own homes. There was one ABLE account holder who I had the fortune to meet just a couple of weeks ago. I was sharing this with Alex and Drew, who lives in Kansas City, Missouri, Senator, not Kansas City, Kansas, who just, he's legally blind. He just bought his own home out of his ABLE account. We have folks that are lifting around town, having more independence with their ABLE accounts. And then we have folks that are modifying their own homes and making their homes more accessible with their own money. So I just wanted to mark that. But the last question, or maybe to actually answer your question, Senator Britt, is to talk about the future. And yes, we're here to celebrate Enable and all of the policy reforms that we've all around this table and in this room and out there have fought so hard for. But what I'd like to see is a path forward where we talk about ABLE in every disability conversation. ABLE really reforms the ability, and I think Betty Ann touched on this, Julie touched on this, to save assets. It solves the issues and challenges for the individual to remain on those benefits and save assets for the future. And the former commissioner also alluded to this as well. What we haven't solved is that ability for somebody with a disability to also have the incentive to go out and work. And as we talk about the future of ABLE, the more individuals with disabilities that are working, the more money they can put into those ABLE accounts and those retirement accounts. So I look forward to continuing to work with both of you and all of your colleagues to talk about income limitation reform and how we can utilize that as a driver to be sitting here maybe next year at this time celebrating the passage of the Enable Act, but then having $10 billion in assets under management in ABLE accounts. So it's an exciting time, and we couldn't do what we do as a disability community without leaders and champions like you. So thank you again for having us all here together.
Sarah, thanks. And yeah, we have known each other a long time, and I appreciate all the work that you've done. I really do mean that. And so now I want to turn it over to Dylan Gibbons, who is the policy director at the National Association of State Treasurers.
Thank you for hosting this forum, and to your colleagues for their participation. On behalf of the National Association of State Treasurers, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude for your leadership and unwavering support on ABLE savings programs. Your commitment to enhancing the financial independence of individuals with disabilities through these tax-advantaged savings accounts has made a transformative difference in the lives of thousands of Americans. As state treasurers, we're proud to administer and advocate for ABLE programs across the country. NAS works tirelessly to ensure that these programs are accessible, well-managed, and responsive to the needs of account holders. We collaborate closely with financial institutions, disability advocates, and policymakers to promote ABLE accounts and ensure their success. While the number of ABLE accounts continues to grow at a rate at roughly 30,000 accounts annually through national awareness campaigns, partnerships, and ongoing education efforts, we are working to continue to increase the number of ABLE account holders and help even more individuals with disabilities achieve financial independence. As was mentioned earlier, as of June of this year, there are over 180,000 ABLE accounts with over $2 billion in assets under management. Thanks to your efforts and the recently passed ABLE Age Adjustment Act, which extends ABLE eligibility to individuals with disabilities that began before age 46, we will see significant broadened access to these programs. This expansion will allow millions more Americans to take advantage of ABLE accounts, continue to meet the evolving needs of individuals with disabilities and their families. In closing, and before I ask a question of my friend Chris, In closing, we extend our deepest thanks to Congress for your continued leadership and support in the development and expansion of ABLE programs. Together, we are making lasting impacts in the lives of Americans with disabilities, providing them with the tools that they need to thrive. We look forward to our continued partnership as we work together toward a more financially inclusive future for all. Thank you for your time, and I will ask Chris, who's been working on this, on ABLE programs since its inception. Chris is with the Commonwealth Savers in Virginia, where it all started. So over the time from its inception, you've been there. What can you tell us about the growth and your experience from where it started to where these programs are at now?
Thanks, Dylan. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. There we go. Virginians are generally insufferable on this subject because we deem ourselves the birthplace of ABLE, thanks to Natalie's parents, Catherine and Steve. As Sarah stated, they sat at a kitchen table one night and thought this up, and that's one of the best things I think about this country, is that two parents who are concerned about the future of their daughter can sit and talk and come up with a great idea and get their friends involved, and then finally, at the very end, involve folks like me and Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and the other states and the organizations that are circled around here, and bring to life, thanks to your help and thanks to your votes, this particular program. And it has been an interesting journey. It is, Betty Ann and others will know that initially it's all about gaining credibility with the community. They're naturally suspicious. We're coming in, we're from the government, and we're here to help, and we're telling you that $2,000, you get the rule of having just $2,000 to your name that you've learned since day one is can be, there's an exception to that. I have not faced a tougher jury or a tougher judge than talking to folks about that and saying there may be a way for you to save more. And then it's also about going out to the community, to those force multipliers like attorneys and CPAs, winning them over and telling them, and that's thanks to the help of our the sister states, sister programs we've been able to do. And again, we were lucky enough, as Dylan said, to be present at the creation, and we had a little bit, just a tiny bit of an opportunity before it was passed to go over what we would like. And Senator, because you're a treasurer of your state, that it's a little bit like a 529, not quite, but we used the lessons that we learned in the 529 world and applied them to the design of ABLE. And, one of the things, I'll add my voice to Treasurer Boozer's list of improvements, and forgive me, Young, if you've mentioned this, but I think one of the most useful things that we could do to improve is to eliminate the one account per person rule, because it is by far, when I come to a customer service, is by far one of the most common reasons why we can't open up new accounts. Because Uncle Ernie wants to open up an account for their nephew who is an individual with a disability, and but there's already an account open, and so they lose interest, and so you lose that momentum. So if we can have, like most other financial products, to be relieved by this limitation, I think would make a big difference in the growth of the accounts. Most of all, it's I'm lucky, very fortunate to again be part of this from the beginning. It has touched me every time I've spoken to a group or seen an individual who is impacted. I know that a lot of our customers have been banked for the first time because of this, and they are able to take advantage of actually the financial, all the protections that the financial system affords, and the flexibilities that the ABLE account supports. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear that story about how this happened, and I'll just share mine. I mentioned, I got into politics. My son was, born with really big challenges, and but when I was in the state senate, what I would do every December before session started, I'd sit around with disability advocates and say, what can I do this upcoming year? And it was I guess that would have been 2015, I think, and one parent at that table at the coffee shop was like, what's about ready to pass Congress is this ABLE Act thing, and Missouri could be, one of the first states. So it is interesting how advocates and parents have played such an important role in this, and I think that obviously continues. I'll turn it over now to our next guest. Thank you for being here. David, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is David Sitkowski. I'm a Vice President of Advocacy at Autism Speaks, and thank you, Senator Schmitt, for inviting me to be here to provide remarks. Autism Speaks is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to creating an inclusive world for all individuals with autism throughout their lifespan. We do this through advocacy, services, supports, research, and innovation, and advances in care for autistic individuals and their families. I'd like to express my thanks to Senator Schmitt again for his leadership, not only in organizing this roundtable or the Enable Act, which we are very supportive of, but for, as you just described, your steadfast leadership throughout your career on behalf of people with disabilities, including those on the autism spectrum. I'd also like to thank Senator Britt and Senator Tuberville for their support on the Enable Act and for being here and elevating this issue, which is just so important for so many across the disability community. And I just saw Congressman Molinaro walk in. Thank you, Congressman. We've worked closely with Congressman Molinaro on a number of initiatives. I'd just like to shout out to him for an excellent floor speech on the Autism Cares Act last night. And the Autism Cares Act actually just passed in the House of Representatives a few minutes ago. So thank you for that. For many years, Autism Speaks has joined with colleague organizations like many here today to advocate and support the implementation of the ABLE Act. In particular, I'd like to shout out the National Down Syndrome Society for their leadership and, of course, the Beck family for all of their incredible work over so many years. Many of you also know my colleague Stuart Spielman, who has been a leader on this issue and would be here today, if not for the fact that he is up in New York with his younger son, who just successfully defended his PhD dissertation. For so many autistic people and their families, ABLE accounts can be an absolute game changer. The flexibility of ABLE accounts in so many ways is a perfect match for the diverse strengths and challenges experienced by the 1 in 36 children and 1 in 45 adults in the U.S. on the autism spectrum. There's a saying that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And ABLE accounts provide the ability to meet each autistic person's unique needs. We've seen estimates that up to 80% of autistic young adults are unemployed or underemployed. While we're doing our part at Autism Speaks through programs like Workplace Inclusion Now to increase employment opportunities, ABLE accounts can be an absolutely vital tool to allow autistic people to pursue meaningful employment and secure financial independence. For autistic individuals with higher levels of daily life support needs, ABLE accounts can be a lifeline for families to help save and pay for care and services. They also help provide peace of mind to so many parents who worry about what will happen after they pass. Thanks to the leadership of so many people in this room, the ABLE Act has been a tremendous success in increasing the financial security of thousands of autistic people and their families across the country. We also know that there's more work to do to ensure that more autistic people and their families can take advantage of the tremendous opportunity that ABLE accounts present. That's why we're so grateful for bills like the Enable Act, which is vital to ensuring we continue moving the ball forward and getting more individuals access to ABLE accounts. We at Autism Speaks look forward to continuing to work with our champions here in Congress, as well as the amazing advocates and organizations in this room to keep the momentum going strong as we approach the 10-year anniversary of ABLE. So thank you.
David, and now I'll turn it over to Representative Molinaro, who sounds like he's been pretty busy. So thanks for being here.
admittedly, the House of Representatives does not define or itself as being terribly busy, but we have, at least we got to some work done yesterday. I apologize for being a little late today. Certainly, David, thank you for your kind words. I come to this conversation not only having spent the last 30 years in local government addressing the delivery of services to those with intellectual, physical, and developmental disabilities, but I am the proud father of 4 children, one of whom born on the autism spectrum with a seizure disorder. And I often say that I would not have asked 20 years ago for a child with a disability, but 20 years later I would have it no other way. During my time in local government, we launched what we refer to as Think Differently, a local initiative. In the state of New York, it's, as all things in the state of New York, it's complicated. County governments are responsible for the delivery of services for those with disabilities, and when we launched Think Differently, our goal was to try to unify the delivery of services and make it easier for families to navigate accessing resources and services. Now in Congress, we've sponsored 8 pieces of bipartisan legislation around the Think Differently model. Everything from the Think Differently database, which seeks to create a comprehensive point of access to all federally supported services for those with disabilities, to Think Differently about disability employment, which is meant to increase opportunities for those to enter the workforce and, by the way, start their own businesses, and the Think Differently about Education Act, which I hope will pass the House next week, which requires school districts to inform families that they have a right to a third-party advocate in CSE meetings, critically important. And so I've had not only some legislative experience in this space, and as a dad, my daughter benefits from ABLE accounts, as you all know, and we thank the senators for their leadership. ABLE accounts are an empowering tool to provide financial stability for those with intellectual, physical, and developmental disabilities, and they give families, I think, the confidence to lead more fulfilling, independent, and successful lives. And so proud to work alongside Senator Schmitt, Chairwoman McMorris-Rodgers in the House, and thank you, Senator Britt, for your leadership as well. Obviously, the ENABLE Act and ABLE 3.0 help to ensure those with disabilities and their families and caregivers have the resources they need to succeed. And so my job at the moment is to ask Candy Picard, who I know quite well, to just, if you wouldn't mind, offering some comments on a question that I've conveniently prepared you for. Why don't we talk a little bit about your experience at NDSS and, of course, as the mother of a child with Down syndrome, how we can make ABLE accounts more investor-friendly and raise awareness as to the importance they offer.
No, thank you for the question. Thank you for having me here. I think it's interesting, as the Congressman mentioned, I have a 12-year-old son with Down syndrome, and when Mason was born, it was at the height of ABLE, and to be now sitting around this table and being part of this conversation is really powerful and very meaningful to me, so thank you. But to answer your question, I think that the investment options that ABLE accounts provide are not often discussed. And what we do know from our friends in the industry and on the management side of ABLE is that the FDIC insured savings are where most beneficiaries choose to keep their ABLE funds. However, for those that do choose to invest through their ABLE accounts, the more aggressive investment options are actually the most popular. So what this tells us is that those who are interested in leveraging the investment options of their ABLE accounts, they're much more likely to choose options that provide higher returns. And to answer your question, I think one of the ways that we can make ABLE accounts more investor-friendly is by further educating, as we've heard in this room over and over, the disability community on the investment options that are available to them. As investments and ABLE accounts grow, so will the investment options that are offered. And we wouldn't be surprised if over time accounts evolve to have investment options similar to target date funds that many Americans rely on for retirement and for their futures. The ease of these funds would greatly benefit the disability community and make investments through your ABLE account much more friendly.
Thank you, Candy. Thank you, Senator Schmitt and Senator Britt, for your leadership and support. I did say yesterday, and I'd like to just repeat it, because I don't often get to put my daughter's name on the record, but Abigail Faith Molinaro benefits from the great work of ABLE accounts. Thanks.
Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I know it's not easy to get here, and some, like again, with young Boozer, a little harder than others, but we do appreciate it. And I think this roundtable and our efforts are just sort of a testament. I think that when you bring people together for something that people believe in passionately, that's going to make a difference. There's sort of no limit to what we can accomplish. And I'm proud to be a part of it, and thank you all for being a part of it too. Thank you.